Hey listeners, Eliza and I are heading to Las Vegas to work on a week of episodes exploring the city's exciting food and drink scene. But first, we wanted to ask you, do you have a favorite restaurant or bar, or want to tell us about an underrated gem that we must visit? We'd love to hear about your Las Vegas spots. Write us at hello@tastecooking.com to share. And we look forward to bringing you these special episodes in early June.
We really think European butter from France is the best butter, and our friend, the expert baker and best-selling cookbook author David Leibovitz, agrees. Check out our recent episode with David to find out how he cooks with quality butter. And for recipes, tips, and cooking advice, go to tasteeurope.com.
Chefs are very consistent in their thinking. We're always thinking about the food and the people we're serving, and whether we're on TV or not, certainly the TV brought a lot of new issues. A lot of it is duplicated by social media. So like being on and being in the spotlight all the time is certainly duplicated by social media.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Matt Rodbard. Rocco DiSpirito has some deep cooking history in New York City, and we go over all of it in this highly entertaining episode. Rocco was the chef behind Union Pacific, a legendary restaurant that operated in the late 1990s and led to Rocco's star turn on one of the first food reality TV shows, the infamous The Restaurant, that ran on NBC from 2003 to 2004. On this episode, we talk about the show and how it led to a generation of food programming. We also hear about Rocco's cookbook career and what excites him in food today. I hope you enjoy this conversation with a real legend in the game. Rocco DiSpirito, welcome to This Is Taste. Are you messing with TikTok right now?
I am, yeah. I like it a lot. Yeah.
What are you doing on TikTok?
Well, I think, first of all, it's probably one of the best places to learn how to cook visually. YouTube is great, but it's just so tiring and boring and takes so long, and ramping up the videos takes forever, and TikTok is immediate. 30 seconds, you learn how to make a dish.
I mean, it's pure
especially if you know how to cook.
Yeah, true.
If you know how to cook and you watch a well-made 30-second video on TikTok, it could be the equivalent of a 2-week education in a real restaurant.
I agree, and it's like entertainment too, which I think, back to your career, I mean, you've been doing food entertainment on television for over 2 decades, which is dope. I mean, you were like the original.
But who's counting?
I mean, we are in a retrospective interview that we're doing here. This is your life, Rocco DiSpirito.
If you must. Yeah.
Okay, first off, what's good in New York right now, restaurant-wise? Are you going out to some spots?
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I'm going to say it. Teresi.
No hate. Rich has been on the show.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's a good restaurant.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So it reminds me of a little bit when every chef in New York was basically gangbusters every day. How can we change lives? How can we make magic? Every dish is going to blow people's minds. That's what sort of their ambition level is.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see it, because it's been a little hard to find the last few years.
Well, I had John George in here recently, and we were talking about Spice Market.
With the exception of him.
Yeah, a little flex here, but I felt like it was Tracy and John George. Tracy and Spice Market have a similar theatrical approach. You walk in, it's like,
oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, very true.
We have to go back to Union Pacific, and
we do.
When you're,
who says? Did Diana say?
No, none.
Diana's my editor, by the way.
Yeah,
she's
shout
the
out
best
to Diana.
editor
Yeah,
in the
great
world.
editor.
Don't try to steal her.
Yeah, right. We're talking a little like trade stuff. Your little Publishers Weekly trades. No, I want to know. When you're like just like in a quiet time in your life and you're reflecting on life and you think about Union Pacific, what pops into your head right away about that time?
So what pops in my head is the amazing cooks that are now all incredible chefs in their own right that I had access to back then. New York was flush with amazing young people who wanted to learn how to cook, who were willing to do whatever, and when I say do whatever, I just mean cook, work and cook and learn how to put in the time and perform the ritual of coming to work every day and cooking through the night, doing their best. And things are a little different now. That's not the focus for a lot of people. So when you have 20, 30, 40 people like that you can tap into every day, you can really do magical things. And we were able to do that thanks to all of those people. Josh comes to mind.
Josh, what's his last name?
Yeah, Josh DeShellis.
Yeah, of course, Josh DeShellis. Great name.
I mean, great, incredible cook, such great energy. Dave Crane, Dave Coleman, Carla Lally, music was there at that time. She's now doing amazing things on her own. Yeah,
one of our authors. She's amazing.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Let me ask you. When Ruth Reuschel dropped the review, and I'm gonna quote it, Mr. DiSpirito has an interesting mind. He seems to think about flavor in ways that ordinary people don't. I've yet to taste anything on Mr. DiSpirito's menu that is not wonderful. So when Ruth Reuschel rolls in and drops this review, really, really high praise, what happens to you and your restaurant and your life?
I don't want to pretend it wasn't a big deal. It was a major moment for all of us. We waited for her to come in and tell us what she thought. We all respected her so much. We hung on every word of Ruth Reuschel. I don't know if you remember, if you were around back then. You were a little young for it, but Ruth's word was the opinion that mattered back then. And she did her homework. She ate 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times if she had to. She did the disguises. I mean, she really was in it 100%. And so when she said something good, you had to take her word for it. You had to believe her, and it felt great. I mean, it was true validation from a real hero of mine and all of ours.
Yeah, and she did the same in L.A. with Michael McCarty's restaurants and put chefs on the map back in LA in the 70s, and she does the same in the 90s in New York. And you're a young rising talent, you get this great review. What happens to you personally as your profile after Ruth writes this review?
Well, naturally, she brought a lot of attention to the restaurant. She reviewed it twice in the same year. She came in once, and I'll never forget the night we were redoing her table because I wasn't happy with how the dishes came out. So I decided to hold all 6 dishes and make them all over again. And she got home late. Her babysitter had to stay late, so she was very upset.
Wow. You just slowed down service.
I slowed everything down, and I just, snail's pace. And she had a young child at the time. And she told me, she said, people are waiting we have babysitters. We have to go home. So she gave me a very nice 2-star review, which was, wonderful, but not what we were going after. And then 9 months later, came in and wrote the second review, which was, full of the wonderful quotes that you read earlier. And it definitely changed the profile of the restaurant. At that time, 3 stars in the New York Times meant a lot.
Absolutely. Very rarefied place. Yeah. And there's no internet. I mean, this is
Right. I mean, I think we have to constantly remind people this is pre-social, pre-internet.
Yeah, and just print magazines and print publications meant the world, particularly for New York City, which had 8-9 million people reading it and wanting to know where to go. I mean, how do you? And you didn't have Resi, so how you what's your reservation line like?
We had our own. We had Pete Menendez, a guy who took reservations, who now runs his own thing. Another great guy. We had to come up with our own reservation system. Open Table and those things were things that we were just starting to talk about back then, the technology that helps us all, that we all rely on now. We had to do our own schedules. Imagine that. We had to calculate our own tips. We had to add food cost up
on
by
paper.
Hand, on paper.
Yeah, paper gets lost. Paper gets a stain, and you're kind of fucked. Right?
We had clipboards back then. I was cleaning up something I moved recently, so I've been emptying boxes, and I came across a bunch of clipboards, and I thought, well, we don't need those anymore. So the New York Times review was the review that made or broke your restaurant, and the Zagat was also another very important piece of information that we relied on. We bought 5 Zagats, one for the car, one for the bike, one for home, one
completely. I remember having multiple.
We had
copies.
them everywhere. Yeah.
No, and this was before smartphones and before you had a map with a bunch of restaurants. You had basically a guide. I want to go back a little bit further to Les Menaces. I mean, working under Greg Kuntz, I feel like that's an era. You're working with Andrew Carmelini, Floyd Cordos, Corey Lee, David Chang is maybe there as an extern.
Yeah,
and you're there. And what's that like? And working under Gray, who I think is R.I.P. was a legend in our industry.
Gray was from another planet. There's no question. Gray had standards we hadn't heard of or thought of yet, and he had, techniques and ways of doing things that no one had ever encountered before. He worked for one of my heroes, Freddie Girardet, and my plan was to work for Gray to get to Freddie Girardet. Little did I know that working with Gray was going to be more than enough. And I worked right next to Floyd. Floyd was on the station next to me. I remember very well working with him and thinking how special he was back then. There were a lot of special people in that kitchen, especially Carmelini, of course, and Chang and many others. And it was a good place for young, ambitious people like us to learn the craft, to also recognize that we knew much less than we thought about the craft. Because, again, he was... from a different
planet,
different place and time, and when you thought you knew how to peel a carrot, he showed you a way that you never even realized was possible. Extraordinary moment in time. A lot of what he did there inspired my next few moves and how I ran my kitchen in terms of standards and mise en place and execution for food. I didn't know until I worked for Gray that you could send things back, that you could stop. You could stop in the middle of service and have everyone redo everything because it wasn't good. I didn't realize that those were standards that were possible. Now you could call them unproductive if you want, but at the same time, if you ate at Les Pinas at that time, you knew you were going to get a near perfect meal.
This is brigade style cooking. It's haute cuisine. It's like what the French guys kind of established in France and New York in the 90s. This is definitely the way the proper 3 stars ran. I got a question, like tonally, what was the vibe in the kitchen? Because I think we've had this like a little revisionist history about bad people in kitchens. We do not need to go into that in detail, but I'd like to know.
Are you sure you don't want to spend a couple hours doing that? It'd be so fun.
Rocco, we could. I mean,
fun.
If you want, we could look I don't want to relitigate, but I do want to say, there's been this sense that if you have a stern word in a kitchen, you're an awful person. Gray Kunz clearly had a vibe, and it was not always positive. Let's just be clear for the record what it was like tonally in that kitchen.
We, those who worked there, practically begged him to let us work there. After seeing it, everyone trailed or staged for a few days beforehand. We knew what we were getting into. We wanted to be there. We understood what the tone was and what the expectations were. We were more concerned about whether we could live up to those expectations versus, criticizing him and his approach. We had a lot of fun in that kitchen, believe it or not. There was a lot of laughter. There were some real characters. Christophe, the saucier, was like the French Jim Carrey. He made us laugh all day long. Troy Dupuis made us laugh all day long. So while Gray was very serious about food and had standards that you could not work around, there were no workarounds for his results. You had to deliver the results he asked for. He was very straightforward about them, very transparent about them. There was no surprises. He told you beforehand the 8-sided Pomme Chateau had to be 8-sided. So
if you're hitting 7, you're out the kitchen for that.
He didn't serve it, and he made you do it over again.
Yeah.
And that's what we were there for, because while that was present in New York at the time, it wasn't accessible to a lot of American chefs. What he did that was a first was allow Americans to work in a French brigade system in New York City. He was one of the first to really open the doors to all the American cooks like me who were running around looking for that kind of experience, which is why I ended up not going to Freddie Girardet, because I felt like I got that experience in New York, which was incredible. I don't know that anybody's licking their wounds saying, I wish I didn't work for that guy. It was, time not well spent. It's not true at all. I think it was a founding. It was foundational for Ask Andrew, Ask Floyd now, of course, but Ask Anybody was foundational for all of us.
And
we loved
really
being there.
The names you mentioned.
And I would go back and work there 2 more years if I could today.
I'd love to hear that. You would go work.
Oh my
in Brigade.
God, I'd kill for an experience like that.
Let's put it on camera. Let's put you in the Brigade. I mean, there's clearly.
Ask Andrew, ask all of them if they could run or feel a kitchen like that again, what they would do for that.
And then he would later open like Cafe Grays and other restaurants.
He did, and in Upper House in Hong Kong. And, were we tired every day at the end of the day? Sure. Did we sometimes wonder if what we produced was good enough? Sure. But, it was his name on the restaurant, and he had to make those decisions in the end, and that's how it works.
I'm glad we established your background, your culinary background, like highly acclaimed from Ruth Rochelle and many others, working under Cafe.
Me too. Thanks.
Working under Gray Kunz, and the pivot is this: in 2004, you started a reality show called The Restaurant. I'm gonna guess like 5% of our listeners know what the fuck that was, know what The Restaurant was, but I certainly was writing about food at that time, and I knew what it was, which was truly the first time a restaurant was being shown in some form of reality television on national network television. And it was a huge moment for food and the zeitgeist. I mean, Bourdain is writing his books a few years prior, and obviously capturing attention. But you are like truly one of the original TV celebrity chefs. What is going through your mind when you're on television in this way, on network television, on NBC, on like when ratings were? It was watched.
Yeah, same thing that's going through my mind today, and same thing that was going through my mind before. Are we going to be ready for service? Is the food going to be good enough? Am I going to be happy with the results? Are we going to make people happy tonight? Are people going to leave the restaurant thinking it was worth the exercise, worth the expense? Chefs are very consistent in their thinking. We're always thinking about the food and the people we're serving, and whether we're on TV or not. Certainly the TV brought a lot of new issues that aren't inherent necessarily in the restaurant business today, although a lot of it is duplicated by social media. So like being on and being in the spotlight all the time is certainly duplicated by social media because everything is now posted on social media. Sort of changed everything and nothing is I know a terrible answer, but kind of true, because if you're a person who cooks every day for a living, that it never really changes. We love to do that. Whether you know that I'm doing it or not doing it, if I'm doing it quietly and it's a pop-up somewhere as a consultant or writing a book, that's what we live to do and love to do. The cameras obviously were a physical distraction and provided lots of physical challenges.
Yeah,
we had to work around the crews and work around the people.
Pre-Top Chef, pre-Master Chef, pre all that.
Because this was a real restaurant that was operating in New York City. It wasn't a set.
Yeah,
which was the mistake.
Yeah, it was the mistake of the show. And
the next 5 shows were all sets.
Literally hasn't really been done since having a real long form show. I know. So Rocco's on 22. Is that a good restaurant? Was that a good restaurant?
Was it a good restaurant? Yeah, I think it was a great restaurant. It was a serious restaurant built to be a restaurant. It was a restaurant prior to the show. Restaurant that I'd been working on.
Yeah.
The build out and the opening got accelerated due to the programming needs, but it was I thought a love letter to Italian American cooking. Pre Carbone, it was sort of what Carbone did. 10 years earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I asked that and knowing the answer because obviously you have standards and you weren't going to put up bad food, but then the reality and the drama happens and you have to separate from that restaurant at some point. And what's that like when you have to like leave this restaurant that you founded and like the drama is captured on television?
Definitely interesting times, lots of confusion about what to do next and how to handle yourself during that transition. But something you learn to live through. At that point in my career, I was so young, I wasn't necessarily prepared.
Yeah, you're young.
Experience, yeah. I think now any chef of my age or who's been through a few restaurants understands that opening and closing restaurants is part of the business.
Yeah.
So I don't think it feels as serious
like a
as
death.
back then.
I mean, it's not. Yeah. Feel the same way. Yeah.
But it was super interesting. I remember feeling, very occupied with it at the time, and now when I think back, I was like, oh, it's just another restaurant.
It just was another restaurant.
Closed, yeah.
And so you were at the Standard Grill for like a minute, and I want to get into that, but then you haven't really had a restaurant in New York since then, right?
No, I haven't had a restaurant. I've consulted and done pop-ups, but nothing. Sure. Nothing of my own. So I was at the Standard for a little more than a minute. We kept it very quiet for a long time, and real proud of what we did.
Thank you for coming correct with that, because I wasn't trying to diminish it. Because honestly, when you joined the Standard, Kat Kinsman wrote this great piece in Food and Wine that I revisited. I think I'm going to link to that. It's a great piece about you and like you being there, and there was like general excitement, enthusiasm for you cooking again in New York, and you did keep it quiet. So I think the optics were that it was a short-lived thing, but obviously it's untrue. Let me ask you, I mean, that food, I didn't dine there, but I wanted to. I wanted to try your restaurant food. I'm just like being selfish here. Yeah. Because like what I read and what I knew, but are you going to enter the kitchen again?
Yeah, I mean, that food turned out well in spite of all the challenges that come with running a hotel with 7 food and beverage outlets and 2 nightclubs. I was able to reassemble some of my team from Union Pacific, believe it or not. The chef, Dan Perilla, Chino, lovingly referred to as Chino, who is the chef of Quality Bistro now, who worked with me at Union Pacific, was able to run that team and lead it and really duplicate a lot of the standards that he and I loved from back in the day. So very proud of that food. We did a lot of focusing on ingredients and building out beautiful dishes from the best ingredients.
Yeah.
Which is what I think the hotel needed.
Yeah, but like the Boom Boom Room, like food and bev was not probably like your favorite thing to do because like it's a club, right?
We did great food at the Boom Boom.
I mean, I can't deny that.
They wanted and I wanted, and the owner who lives in Hong Kong, this billionaire from Hong Kong, wanted great food in the Boom Boom Room, and so that was a great menu. I was very proud of that menu.
Yeah, what's on the menu? What's happening at Boom Boom when you're there?
We had amazing dumplings. We had foie gras. We had jamon iberico. We had good stuff.
Yeah.
Caviar. Good stuff.
Great things to pop with the crew.
Kind of stuff that you want to have when you're drinking and out late.
Late night overlooking downtown.
Japanese, Korean style fried chicken, karaage.
Oh, right on. I like that. So I mean, let me ask you. I mean, do you want to open in New York at some point?
I am unfortunately stuck with this business, and it's stuck with me. So we're locked into each other at this point. So yeah, I mean, I love the city. I love living here. I love working here. I still believe in the magic of New York, and I think New York more than ever needs magical food. So yeah.
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see you. What would the concept be, just generally, that you would want to open?
So I go from 10 person counter concept to big place with 8 pizza ovens. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
it's sort of in New York. You got to build around the space.
Agree.
Yeah.
And that's what it's what a veteran would say. It's the first answer, and it's what the deal is, what the real estate deal.
Exactly.
Food costs are. But like, do you look at like the idea of food costs right now, and like, does it feel a little intimidating? Because it's kind of crazy, this like adjustment in cost structure in restaurants, and like the way diners now have to realize it's $150 a person to go to dine at a nice restaurant now, not $48 anymore.
Well, one thing that's a positive outcome of the crazy increase in costs is that people are very well aware of it now. So they don't always think, oh, the restaurant's gouging us. They know now that things are so expensive, and that when restaurants add, a 3% this fee and a ribbon cutting fee and a culinary fee, and they're really just trying to survive, because it is so hard to stay open. So that is a positive thing. I do hope that food costs could come down at some point, because it really limits what you can do, which is why you're seeing a lot of like New York perma menus. I don't know if you noticed, but everyone has the same menu these days.
Yeah.
It's the fancy burger and the
burgers
tartare
can be 33 and that's fine. People are down because it's like cheaper than most things.
Right. It's not $60 for roast chicken.
Exactly. Yeah. Roast chicken's like 58, and and when you talk about these costs, it's like, it used to be $40 a person for nice dining. But let's move on to QVC, because what I really appreciate is your early pivot to QVC and actually working in that kind of arena. You clearly embraced it early on in your career. Why?
Yeah,
you're great. I mean, dude, I hope you take this right. I mean,
great opportunity to sell cookbooks first, which is what happened first. I think they brought me on for a cookbook. Yeah, we brought me on for flavor, and we sold I think 10,000 copies, and everyone was blown away. And then we met someone who was able to duplicate my mom's meatballs, and we were able to sell those. And yeah, it was pretty cool. Pretty cool, yeah. And they were able to get into factories and access to products that no one had heard about yet, and they were able to be experimental because of their buying power. So it was very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and you still do it a little bit now?
No, I don't do it.
You don't do it anymore. But I remember it just was a cool thing to see a chef on QVC and actually doing the work and offering cool products. So it was like that. Let me ask you a little bit about Everyday Delicious, your new book. How does this evolve in terms of your cookbook writing? You've written several books. This new book, how does it progress?
Well, it's what I feel is a natural progression for me, especially coming out of the pandemic. As you mentioned earlier, March 2020 is when my last book came out, Keto Comfort Diet, my 9th book in a series of health and wellness books. And then, of course, pandemic comes, and I'm home, not in professional kitchens. I just left the Standard, cooking every day for friends and family, and realize how important it is to just focus on the basics, getting something delicious on the table quickly. With ingredients at that time, some were hard to find. Some we couldn't get toilet paper at that time, but so there's a lot of focus on pantry, what's in your pantry. but it sort of just renewed the sense of joy that I get cooking at home for family. And when you're doing it for months and months and months on end, you really have to dig deep a little bit into your culinary bag of tricks to figure out what can be exciting today and what'll make the family feel good today. So I was just hoping to. I mean, it's a pivot from the health and wellness.
Yeah.
And Diana and I decided to not do another keto book precisely because we feel like everyone had gone through this experience with us, of course, and would love to know what a pro chef would do when suddenly confronted with cooking at home every day.
Yeah.
You know.
And was it a big adjustment for you? I mean, you just left this big restaurant job.
Well, cooking is cooking,
Sure.
and we love cooking. And if you're a lifelong culinarian like I am, and like so many of the the colleagues that you mentioned earlier, we love cooking, whether it's home or in a pro kitchen. It's certainly different. The space is different. The ingredients are different. The resources are different. The economy is that's required at home is very different.
Oh yeah, of course.
The efficiency and but it's still cooking. It's still turning on the stove, putting a pan on the stove, and transforming raw ingredients into something delicious. So that part is always magical, will always be magical. Slightly different parameters when you've got friends, family, kids, whatever,
I love it. Do you hang with anybody in the food industry, other chefs now? Do you have them come over? Do you have like a crew? Like, who's your crew?
Crew.
We're talking about your crew.
Tommy, Johnny, Nikki, Frankie,
and Rocco. Here we go. We got a crew
exactly. I have some friends in the industry. Sure. Thanks to Food Network, I spent a lot of time with Guy and Alex Guarnaschelli and Mark Murphy and Aaron Sanchez and Ann Burrell and Scott Connon and Marcus Samuelson. And,
terrific people.
Yeah,
those good people to hang
people.
with. Now, when you do a new show and you've been doing TV, how do you stay excited about the format, or are you always just naturally excited about when the camera comes on?
Well, they make it easy to be excited because everything is competition now. I don't know if you noticed.
Yeah, I have.
There's no more straight cooking.
No,
it's all competition. In fact, the show I'm shooting today is called Out Chefed. It's a competition show that they like spring on the chef. The person who's in the competition doesn't know until I show up.
And you compete against them? Or
you're always excited.
Are you competing against them? Or are you
I'm
judging?
competing against them.
Wait, today you have to go compete.
When I leave here, I'm going to go compete in Out Chef. Yeah.
But
it's wild because they tell the chef who's coming that they're coming to do a casting. And then they lead them into this culinary arena.
That is
and
amazing.
they're like, meet your competitor.
And it's you standing across there, and then they're like, oh God. So my God, let me ask you about this question about competition shows.
Yeah.
I mean, my friend Kieran McGoldrick won Chopped an episode, and he went through the paces, and it's not easy. This is not an easy thing to do, right? Like to actually compete on TV.
Competition's always hard. The thing with cooking is you want there to be as many resources as possible, so we're talking as much time as possible, as many ingredients as possible, as much room, and in the competition they of course restrict all of those things.
I know, and plus there's cameras and there's like makeup and then there's like
so the cameras I'm used to, the makeup is not an issue. I even can run around in my fancy shoes. It ends up being like an Iron Man because the person who's got the most cardio fitness does better than the person who's got the most cooking skill because you got to run around and not run out of breath.
Got to be in shape. So let me ask you: this competitor is walking in. You've got to be. They got to let you have a little bit of surprise too to make it good. You can't just know everything. So what's in your brain right now? Yeah,
so they don't tell us what we're cooking.
Like,
they don't tell us what the secret ingredient is. Of course, we don't get to see the pantry. In my brain, I'm thinking, don't run out of breath, don't trip, don't cut yourself. Those are like the three things I try to avoid doing.
Rocco, are you like a little, like you know it's happening, we're recording this at like 12, it's happening in a few hours. Are you a little nervous? Do you get a little
I'm very nervous, yeah. I'm thinking about it now. I'm looking at my phone, trying to see if I heard from them, No, it's definitely nerve-wracking. You want to perform well every time. You care about these things as much. It's feels a lot like a truncated service, like a service in a restaurant.
Yeah.
But in 30 minutes.
In 30 minutes, but then there's obviously like you can't like rewind it and do it again. I mean,
no, there's no do-overs.
There's no do-overs,
and then they have an audience. They basically pull 6 judges from out in the street.
Oh shit! So it's actually
they literally walk out to the street and say, "Hey, do you want to judge a cooking show?"
This is literally like no way to work around this. If your product is not dope, you're done. You're losing.
Yeah. You're
I love
definitely
it.
losing
Sorry,
here.
buddy. I don't.
No, it's okay.
I don't want to stress you out, man. You're a cool guy, and like I really appreciate this chat. On This Is Taste, we have a guest about the discerning taste. So to close this interview, here's a little rapid fire Fast and Furious taste check. Are you ready?
Oh no, never ready
we're,
for this.
We're doing rapid fires. All right,
Matt, you're doing rapid fires at this point in your career? Come
we're
on.
doing rapid fires.
Oh my goodness.
Totally faced by Rocco DiSpirito. I love it.
Did you train on the red carpets of the 90s?
I have
like for what magazine would have done that?
Oh,
all of them.
Us
They all
Weekly.
did. Yeah,
I have
Us,
to say,
Us
you
Weekly, yeah,
brought
yeah.
it up. I used to work red carpets back in the day. I used to be an entertainment reporter.
Okay.
And I've been to plenty of VMAs and.
So you did rapid fires.
I
for like
did it on
10
the other
years
side.
straight. Yeah.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
I worked the James Beard. I mean, listen.
Yeah.
We're both like we have some reps here.
Okay.
Me on the question side, you on the answer side. All right, we're gonna start the best fruit.
Best fruits?
Yeah.
Custard apple, I think, is
Yeah.
the best fruit. It's not guanabana in Spanish. You can't ever get it, but it's definitely the best fruit.
Guanaba.
Guanabana?
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had one before. The worst vegetable.
Worst vegetable? Celtus.
Celtus. Celtus.
Yeah, Celtus.
I always call it
Celtus, yeah.
Celtus, but that's
yeah, we don't even know how to pronounce it. That's how
Celtus.
bad it is. It's like mucilaginous and like a little bit like celery, a little bit like asparagus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like two things that shouldn't like
You probably don't
combine.
want on a plate ever, right?
Nah. But celeriac, not bad, right? You'll mess.
Celeriac is great. I like it a lot.
Yeah, that's like
You just got to puree that.
pure. It's 90s, man. The best dessert.
Chocolate mousse. No brainer.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. And so is it bitter? Is it sweet? Like what's the best part?
It's the perfect bitter and sweet balance. It's also not too firm, not too soft. You know, it's like a melt in your mouth texture that feels firm for a second. And then once the heat of your mouth, it comes in contact, it melts, and you get that like, you know, skin tingling sensation that you get from great chocolate.
I've had that on my death row.
The chocolate's a chemical. It's a, you know,
It
it's
is.
got,
It
it's
is.
like,
I've had it on my death row list.
Yeah.
That's my death row.
Yeah,
That's
okay,
my third
good,
course.
good.
That's
And by the way, you can make a great one very easily for those of you out there by just melting chocolate, mixing it with soft whipped cream.
I'm thinking this is a really interesting soft whipped cream and just melting.
You whip cream, soft peaks,
Yep.
and sweeten. You take melted chocolate, you temper them together first, and then you fold them gently with a whisk and serve it immediately. It's
Serve immediately.
It's going to harden pretty quick.
But it's not cold then. It's actually
it's room temp, but it's cold from the whipped cream a little bit.
I got it. And what's the chocolate? Is it like a bittersweet or bitter?
I'm always about the bitter chocolate. The darker the chocolate, the better for me.
I like it. Your
But
favorite
you don't need to do the meringue thing if you want to skip that part. That's the part that gets everybody in a tizzy. Yeah.
Your favorite American fast food chain?
In-N-Out. In-N-Out Burger.
Interesting.
Favorite American
Respect it.
for sure. Yeah.
Respect it. Don't agree with it. Respect it.
What's your favorite?
Shake Shack. I'm the other side. I think.
Okay, yeah.
For me, or
Shake
Taco
Shack's
Bell.
like the East Coast. Taco Bell.
Hey, man.
For what reason is that your favorite?
Taco, and you know what? They might be a sponsor. I can't say they're not a sponsor, but they aren't a sponsor as we record this. I like.
They could be though if we stop hating. on them. Yeah.
I just like Taco Bell. I mean, I really, really like the innovation. They just launched a new menu of like chicken, like taqueria style. You're like so suspicious of me. I love it, man. You wrote books about health. I mean, 8-9 books. I mean, you're a very healthy guy. You do not.
No, it's not about. There's no health interfering with my opinion, but
okay,
yeah,
I come correct. All
no,
right.
Shake Shack is a whole like 87 levels above Taco Bell. So yeah,
I agree. So I kind of undermined my first choice with my second choice. Back to you. Your favorite New York City restaurant right now?
Still Nha Trang and Balthazar. They've been my favorites for 20 years. I love them both. They're super consistent. They're opposite ends of the spectrum. They're uniquely New York. They offer thrilling food, thrilling vibes.
Nha Trang's great. I love that.
Nha
Paul.
Trang's outrageous.
I love that you're going classic restaurants. It's very cool that you write that. What about L.A.? Your favorite L.A. restaurant right now? Do you go to L.A. at all?
I haven't been in a year. I couldn't tell you what my favorite is, but the last time I went, Jar was insanely delicious. Yeah,
that's
Jar
a cool
was
call.
great.
I like that.
Yeah,
you have a classic palate for restaurants. I'm into that.
You know what?
It's cool.
I feel like with the investment you need to make in a restaurant experience these days, you want to go with something that's reliable and going to deliver something that you're pretty sure you'll like.
I fully agree.
I went to Zab Zab recently.
Mm-hmm.
It's Thai, 3-star in Queens.
Yeah.
It was extraordinary. Would I have tried that had Pete Wells not written about it? No.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, your favorite cookbook of all time?
La Technique, La Méthode.
Yeah.
Jacques Pepin, 1980, 78, I think.
Yeah.
Those are incredible visionary works of, culinary literature. He was one of the first to take photos and publish photos throughout the book. Incredible
Process
stuff.
shots, exactly.
Yeah. So what was needed at the time too.
Did you go to CAA? I can't remember.
I did. Yeah.
What was that like?
Oh, eye-opening, life-changing. Very, very much about talk about rapid fire of new experiences every day, every minute.
A cuisine you would like to learn more about?
Indian food.
Yeah,
I need to learn more about. I know a good amount about Thai, but I'd like to learn more. Indian and Thai.
That'd be great. Your last one. Your favorite sandwich?
I think it's a croque madame.
Oh, sick. I like that choice.
Yeah,
Is there one that you make it at home?
They're hard to make really well, by the way. They're not easy to make.
Yeah. The bechamel step is a little tricky.
Yeah, the bechamel, the egg, do you undercook? Is it a soft poached egg? Is it a fried, runny, sunny side up? There's a lot of questions there, a lot of techniques. I think Odeon still last time I was at Odeon, I had a croque madame, was very good.
Thank you, Rocco DiSpirito. What a pleasure. Thank you.
That's at the end of your rapid fire.
Do you want? I could do like this for.
What are the next five? What are the?
We could do five more.
I remember seeing a long list.
I mean, we went through the list.
We did. Okay.
I mean, I think I could. I'm going to look through this. A city outside America you would like to visit for food.
So I've been to a couple of great food cities. Paris, Rome, Bangkok, Tokyo. I think I'm going to go back to India and say, somewhere in India would be a real smart next food move.
Your favorite food television show?
Ooh, all right. I don't want to admit this, but Gordon Ramsay's involved.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah. I love Joe Bastianich on TV.
Yeah.
He's like the unknown great TV character that you never expected to be. So him and Aaron, I think, do a great job of rounding out that show.
This is Taste is hosted by Eliza Abarbanel and me,
but my
Matt
favorite,
Rodbar.
of course, is
The
Tournament
show
of
is
Champions.
produced by Shalia Harris and Pat
Which I will
Stango
be
and
appearing on
edited by
Sunday
Clayton
night.
Gumber.
Hosted
Theme
by
music
Kai
by
Fieri.
Steve
Plug it
out. I love
Visit
it.
Taste Online at tastecooking.com.
This has been such a pleasure.
And make sure to
Rocco.
subscribe to our newsletter for updates on all cool things that are happening.